Welcome to True Colors with Mark Recioli.
What? What are you talking about? That was the scariest thing that's happened to me until years later when another scary thing happened. But she's like, I don't know why you would think that. I was like, well, you didn't talk to me. We didn't talk about it. You just locked up everything that could be used to harm me, which was things she needed to do. That's safety. But that was it. We didn't talk about it. There was no, I'm so glad you're okay. How are you feeling? There was nothing like that. She's like, because I was scared. I don't know. I'm sorry that it presented that way. And it made me realize, oh my God, my mom is human. And anger and avoidance is a lot safer than vulnerability and fear. Because, the vulnerability I put on her and now as a parent, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I can see how that would just rock your world. So it was very healing to have that conversation. Now I can talk about it very openly because the other piece is I recognize the biggest trauma that I had from that whole event was the silence. And I do think we make the world safer when we say the word suicide in a safe way. When people don't talk about the details, but we talk about the fact that, when you're hurting, sometimes you think about that. And it doesn't mean you're going to die by suicide. It doesn't make you a bad person or selfish or any of those things. It means you're hurting and you need something. You need something that you're
honest.
And you're being honest. Yeah.
Right.
And so that's a big part of, why suicide conversations are so important to me. But then now as a trainer for Assist, I get to share my story in a way that really normalizes why we're going to say suicide a lot in 2 days, it's going to be intense, but I am living proof that I feel safer. I feel that my family is safer now that I say suicide, and I'm saying it to anyone who will listen.
Again, you're leading by example.
Yeah.
Right. And I think when you were saying your mom, and again, I have a lot of respect for moms, and I had an amazing mother. When I almost look at them as similar to a first responder, that if the child comes to them with that vulnerable question, there's that, well, how much am I willing to share with you without trying to lose it myself?
Yeah.
Right? So that it's almost that mask that they justify, I'm your mom, I have to hold it together for all of us.
I'm not supposed to be breaking down.
I'm not supposed to be breaking down and be honest fully with you. But as kids, as someone who's in tune with their own health, you can feel that something's up. Something's a little off there. But we have a love for that. I thank you for sharing that. That's also, I wholeheartedly believe that we need to continue to paint pictures for people, because people like myself and many that I work with, they'll get into this, well, that's not my life. They'll start saying, well, I feel bad for her, or I feel bad for him.
Someone else has it worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
We start comparing.
The comparison. Yeah.
Right. And we start justifying. And I know I did this at Wounded Warriors. I started thinking after a few shares of some of the vets, I didn't want to share my story. I didn't feel justified in that room.
Yeah.
And it was a big
Which
vet.
then it leads to further shame and guilt. Why am I feeling this way? They have it so much worse. And
Yes.
and we really reinforce the same system of silence that is being kind of forced upon us.
Yes.
We control it. We create it and recreate it.
Completely.
Yeah.
And Gabor Mate will remind us, it's not the external, it's what happens because of the external in our brain.
Yeah. And I always teach that about trauma, how you experience trauma has nothing to do with what happened. You and I tomorrow could be in a car accident and we both walk away, and you might walk away just being like, ugh, man, that sucked. And I could walk away, I'm never going to drive when it's icy, and maybe I'll never drive when it's rainy, and maybe that'll extend to I'm just never going to drive again. People will have to drive me. Because it had nothing to do with the accident. We could have been fine. It could have been a fender bender. It could have been nothing. Maybe a little slip, but it depends on how our brain processes that, how we feel.
Yes.
How much support we have in our recovery, and how much we understand when we need to get help.
you've hit a really good thing for me too, because we may be all trained. I'll take fire, for example. We may be all trained to do the physical job, but we've all come from different mountains of backgrounds of why we're in this service. And we all have had different coping mechanisms. So we all deal with this, and then we can't predict what this trauma may be.
Yeah.
And you've hit it exactly, because I've had some poor coaching from captains saying, I've been to worse. And immediately you're coaching your crew not to speak up about anything.
Yeah.
But you've set a benchmark or an expectation of, well, I don't want to take the truck out of service. I don't want to be, I've only been here 2 years. I haven't seen enough.
Yeah.
All these things that I was going through. Meanwhile, the inside of me is like, put your hand up there, fella. You're not okay.
Yeah.
Right? But we'll fall apart with isolation, addiction, anger. We'll let
It'll show up
right.
somewhere
It
else.
shows up at
Yeah.
cost, right? It costs us if we don't learn how to wring the sponge. And I wanted to touch on too, and this was brought up in an earlier episode. And when we talk about suicide and we talk about ending life, and I know there's a lot of people that I've listened to and spoke with, we have to be reminded that the pain doesn't stop. Mm-hmm. It's transferred, right? It goes to the family, the loved ones who wish, what do they do wrong? Yeah. We think that we are getting to a place where, like you talked about with your mom. Mm-hmm. And that's where we have to be so honest, right? It's not that we wanted that to stop or to the life to end. We wanted the pain to stop, and we feel exhausted. We're emotionally drained. But if we're willing to end our life, and we have children, we have brothers, sisters, parents, there's the grief that's split between them, right? It doesn't end. It's transferred to all of them. Now they have to carry what could I have done? All these things. And I think it's important for people to remember to continue to advocate for being accountable and honest to self.
Yeah.
That means doing things, right? You can't continue to work the same program of your life and expect change. You have to step out of that. And what's the wording? It's not built in comfort, right? Mm-hmm. There's the uncomfortable pieces, like saying it like you said. I just said that thing.
Yeah.
But there's part of probably you that your shoulders probably drop. Like you walk in, all of a sudden it's like, whew, I can breathe for a minute. The elephant's foot's off my chest.
Yeah.
And I want people to, in their own way, to be able to find that relief, even just a little bit, to catch their breath, to have a focus, to say, okay, what can I do better?
Yeah.
I may not need this and this. Don't say these are Jordan's benchmarks are for me. Just take part of her story, and if there's something that resonates, saying, hey, maybe I should look at that and make it better. Because if we're poorly coping and then life gets lifey, now we're a little more susceptible, and we wonder, well, how did this just happen? And that's how I use PTSD for a lot of responders that don't understand. It's not the gore and not all the physical parts of the deaths and burns and all the things I went to. There was the emotional stuff that I can't clear. That's the stuff that I was carrying forward. Mm-hmm. And it would sit, being the empath that I was, and I didn't know how to wring out my own sponge.
Well, it makes, when we feel like we are outside of our own comfort with other people's feelings, or if we can't understand the path that they took to get to the place where they are, that feels very icky. It feels very uncomfortable. And there is this knee-jerk reaction to try and take that discomfort and put it back on whoever you're supposed to be helping or whoever is in need. Like, how dare they? And I think, when I talk about burnout to first responders, frontline workers in mental health, community services, hospital, we see that a lot. We see that in healthcare, where it's like that frustration and annoyance when you ask a question or when you're showing up maybe sad or scared. And, I had that experience when I did try to die by suicide. I was put in the adult ward at Old Vic Hospital, terrifying place for a 17-year-old, for anyone. But I was on the mental health ward, and I was in a room of like 6 other people or 5 other people, surrounded by people who were so unwell and being treated not like the humans they should be. And I remember I woke up to a nurse giving me a needle. That's how I woke up. And I was terrified of needles at the time. And I like jolted. I'm like, sorry, I'm. She's like, stop moving. And I was like, sorry, I'm nervous with needles. She's like, well, then maybe you shouldn't have done this then. And I just like, that always stuck with me as like, what? I was just like, put in my head, what an awful human. You're in the wrong field. And now I mean, I still think that, but I also have like, wow, that was a burnt out person in a system that
Absolutely.
was failing.
Their level of training.
They're out of their scope.
Exhausted.
And I became the, how dare you have a feeling around me? I can't, hold any more of that. And so I just like to validate the piece where like we sometimes see that as someone not being good at their job, but really they're doing a job that's beyond what they were trained to do. Doesn't make it okay. Doesn't mean someone deserves to be treated that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And having received treatment like that, it's something that I always tried to keep front of mind when I engage with community, even when I'm outside of my comfort, because that's messed up. Like, that's just, one deserves to be blamed for that. However, understanding, I think the piece that I think grounds me is that, I'm not responsible for the choices that other people make for themselves. I have a duty to the services that I do. I'm going to call 911 if it's not safe. I'm going to safety plan if I'm able to. I'm going to do the job the way I need to do it. But I'm not responsible for the outcome once I've done the steps I have to. And I think when I finally settled into that, it helped me just go like, okay, I know I'm going to do the best I can with the tools I have. I don't have all the tools. And I will learn more as I go. I don't know what I don't know, and I can't be mad at myself for that. And that allows me to be present with some heavy stuff and recognize that, to your point about, pain being passed on to others. I think it's so important. One, it's good for people to know that. And I will say, clients that I've lost to suicide, I think about. That's not something that I just, it doesn't just go away, and I care about them. And I cared about them, obviously, while they were here. But I also recognize that in their world, they truly believed that either the pain would stop or that the world was better off without them, and that they were helping the people in their lives by doing that. And it's so sad, but that is a truth that I think is so important. And there's a lot of shame, I think, that people carry in thinking about suicide because of the guilt of like, how could I think about doing that to my family? And if that keeps you here, cool. That's great. That's wonderful, but still get help. But like, the shame can also make it harder to stay here because that becomes this narrative. I'm so awful that I'd even think about this. They don't deserve, they deserve better than me. So I just say it's such a complicated thing, suicide, because it's linked to so many different pieces: mental health, situational stressors, overexhaustion, addiction. The statistics are so wild on suicide. But yeah, I think, one, if you are hearing this and it's made you think maybe that's what I've been thinking about, 988, just doing a little plug for the crisis line there, for suicide line.
Reach out
crisis line, or the crisis center in London is 24/7.
Which you are still on call. You still do some work?
I still work there sometimes. I'm relief because I just can't say no. I just love it so much. But I don't work there as often anymore.
Yeah, but I've been the benefactor of. I've done first aid suicide course online a few years ago, and I've talked to you about that. But I can definitely. I've benefited from some of our conversations and paid it forward. I stopped trying to cite sometimes where I got the information from and just recognize it's yours to kind of give away. Yeah. Right. I wanted to ask you, thank you for sharing all that. And if you could say you're in charge of healthcare in Ontario, how would you like to, what can we, in Jordan Boyd's mind, how could corporations, businesses, first responders, anything, nurses, doctors, how can they, what would you do to change kind of that way we have things now? How can we better be proactive? Like, I know it's a big question, but I think there's a lot of things. Getting therapy before you hit a bottom is a type of being, ahead of the curve.
Yeah. I always think of, this is probably not where you thought I was going to go with this, but
That's all right.
I'm going.
I don't know if I ever
TED Talk,
have
Jordan.
the expectation.
No, that's true. So I remember, and I'm going to butcher it because I don't remember ADHD. I only remember the parts that interest me, not the parts that help people find this. But there was this, back in, I don't know, some decades ago, the first test we did on addiction.
Long
time ago in a faraway land.
Yes.
They did this test on rodents. It was rats or mice. I'm not sure which. We'll say mice for this context,
Sure.
but I'm just probably making all of this up. But they did this test, and they had these mice in a cage. That's it, is in some lab somewhere where they've lived this horrible life being, in a cage. And then they were like, I wonder what happens to make someone become addicted to something. So they put two things of like water, and one that was just water, and then one that was like some sort of addictive substance that made you hallucinate or feel good. And they were just horrified to see that these mice, once they discovered that they could have this drug, they kept going back to the water to the point where they ended up dying from overdose because they just had so much. And so that became the framework we used for addiction for a long time, is like, addiction, once, you just take it once, you're addicted for life, and you will just ruin everything that you touch from then on. And certainly there's that component there that, there's chemical addiction is very real and very intense. However, they decided to revisit that test. And again, not citing anything because I cannot remember, but they revisit the test. And this time they were like, well, man, when you have mice that are supposed to be these very social creatures that have these very busy lives that are very fulfilling if you are a rodent and you like that stuff, and suddenly you're just in a cage by yourself, what's the incentive to live differently, right? And so instead they created this like utopian mice world where they had their family units and they had things to challenge themselves with, and they had variety and excitement. And then they had the water, and they had the water with some sort of addictive substance. And it was like 99% just drink the water. So all of a sudden, when you are meeting the needs, not just like the physical needs of food and water and sleep, but the needs, and seeing this as your needs are not just your physical needs. We are social creatures. We need to feel surrounded by community and connected to that community. We need to feel like we have an impact on the people in our lives, and that we get to enjoy the impact they bring to ours, and that we have purpose. And when we have all of this met, our need to use substances or experience depression, anxiety, all these other pieces is diminished significantly because a lot of those social tension is lifted. So I think when I think about like if I could just wave a magic wand and control the healthcare system and make it all change, I would say we as a country need to recognize healthcare is not just going to the doctor or the hospital or the dentist or a therapist. It is education. It is housing. It is quality food, not just like food. It is choice. It is autonomy. It is access to green spaces and play and outdoor. It is sports. It is music. It is culture. It is building communities from the ground up. And until we do that, we're always going to be struggling to catch up with healthcare.
Are you running for the ministry? I like that answer.
I don't have a magic wand, so I don't know if I'll be able to do that.
You've hit so many things. And I think, and I say this in recovery a lot, you have to meet them where they're at. And I think that's, whether we're talking to someone about suicide, wherever, right? You can't project at people. And someone who's the homeless and that you're getting mad because they're jaywalking across the street, but you have no idea what they've been through and where they are in their own mind.
Yeah.
You can be upset with them thinking, oh, the nerve. But meanwhile, if you had a camera, if Mr. Norm Media was following that and doing a documentary and showed you the whole morning of what that person's been through.
I love that you just name dropped Mr. Norm Media.
Yes, I did.
That was smooth. I like that.
Right? He's on the marquee too.
Yeah.
So but truly, you would be coming from a whole different set of you wouldn't be quick to put the claws out.
Yeah. You taught me this actually, and it's something that I was so grateful for when we talked about being late. Because you or I, one of us is always late, like consistently reliable. We are very consistent that way.
Half an hour ago.
Yeah. I know. And I don't know if I think I was late the one time and I was like panicking about it. And you were just like, no, like I realized, like, I don't remember how you said it, but just like why I could spend my time being mad at a train, or I could enjoy that I get some time to listen to the rest of my podcast, or, I'm going to be late no matter what. Why would I spend that time being escalated and miserable when I could just be like, it is what it is.
It's found time.
And not that I'm going to intentionally be late to things, but like accepting that there's some realities you can't change in the moment. Why be angry about it when you could be just in the moment?
Well, and the people pleaser in me would be worried about everybody else, not me.
Yeah.
And so I'd show up with the traffic of London. I'd come in all heat, hot, anxious. And then I was taught, you come in controlled.
Yeah.
If you're 5 minutes late and they've seen you on time, but out of, way out of your window, they'll take 5 minute late mark who's calm, cool. And when I let other people's expectations, it's not that I'm trying to be disrespectful, because usually if I'm behind, I'll text someone saying I'm running behind. That frees me too. When I send that message and I don't even have to look at the phone, I've given you permission to say, oh, okay, well, I have time to grab a coffee.
Well, that's usually what I do.
Right?
I like, okay, I'm going to go get a brownie.
Right?
But,
or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
We're not recognizing sometimes that the other person on the other end may also need that time.
Yeah.
And I think in your own way, we teach people just by being so honest. And that's been most of my story of my life. It's had to have been now, as I've set boundaries. I've set, realistic goals for Mark's health. If I have to back out of something, like I mentioned in a video earlier, if I'm pushing through on other people's expectations, I can't be mad at them for that. But I used to be. Mm-hmm. I used to get angry because I would show it up because I didn't want to be late for them, rather than saying, well, why are you running behind? And again, sometimes 10 minutes too means I have 4 years to get there. But it's just being okay. And if anyone needs to hear this on the other end, give people space. Make it quarter after, right? Instead of on the hour. But I want to read you a quote. Mr. Rogers, again, very vulnerable, very open, very an amazing man. And now I will sit down and put my shoes on. There's things that he did while he came in. He's singing, he's whistling, he's talking to the camera. But he's teaching me more about slowing down while you get ready.
Being
because
present,
that's the other thing. I'll have one shoe on while the other one, I'll just do it in the car. And it's like,
I made that mistake at a wedding 2 weeks ago, and I ended up at the reception with my one shoe and my one Croc on. So
bare feet it was?
Mr. Rogers. There's a picture. A bunch of people thought I had injured my foot.
Oh my goodness.
So just Mr. Rogers, he's speaking the truth.
He is speaking the truth. And he's walking the walk, right?
Yes.
So this is a quote, and I'll ask you a question about this. So it says, early on, I must have been permitted to play the piano whenever I was feeling, if needed. My parents had said, oh, don't play that loud, ugly, play something pretty and happy. I might have given up the musical way of dealing with my feelings.
Ooh.
Now, this walks into the music side of you that I'm going to ask you. Mm-hmm. How has music. I use lyrics. I listen to music. We talked about bilateral, but you, again, using your voice and share whatever you want. But the power of music is so overlooked, right? Whether I'm reading stuff on the Mozart effect or high vibrational sounds. What has music meant in your journey?
I think, thinking of that time when I was like 17, so, there was a lot going on in my world, and music was my outlet because I didn't grow up in that really emotional home, and I had these big, big feelings my whole life, and they came out as anger a lot. And now I recognize it was like anxiety, it was fear, it was all these other, it was trauma coming up, but it came out in anger. And then I started going to, it was guitar lessons is how it was framed to me, but it was really, it ended up being really more like music therapy, happy accident style. And I wrote music and we recorded it, and it was it just gave me this way to kind of, it was all like, romance and silly stuff, but it was like more the fact that I was like, just the process gave me this creative outlet more than anything else. And certainly tied in like poetry, and I loved to just like play around with words and music. And I think it's one of those things where music becomes, again, this like connecting conduit for people, just like art, just like, sports is like anything can be. But I would, play, or I would record a song, and I would write a song and record it, and I'd be like, oh, that's really silly, I don't know. And then my friends would get a hold of it and they'd start playing it. And then to the point where, at the grad party, I went into the bathroom and there was an intoxicated girl who came up to me crying, singing one of the songs that I wrote to me. And it was just like such a surreal, like, what is happening? But it was more because, again, like people that I wasn't
here and went to here.
I know, I was like, what?
Yeah, wow.
But like it had nothing to do with the words of this. It was she had connected to the song. She was in her feelings about I don't know what, but I think it helped me feel like I was in my own way creating something from all the pain that I was experiencing at the time. I don't sing really anymore. My anxiety just became, it became too much for me. It was no longer like I would.
You don't sing for others.
I don't sing for others. I can't stop myself from singing. I'm singing constantly. Anyone who works with me for a minute.
I was going to say, sometimes that's how you make a point. Right?
It's true. It's true. Right? Yes. Or like I call it my hold music. If I'm looking something up while someone's with me, I'm like, sorry. And I realize I'm singing like the Super Mario Brothers song or something. But, that's also very ADHD coded, where there's like always like a part of a song just like kind of playing on repeat. But it's a connector. Like, I remember when I went through a really dark depression in my early 20s. And it was a breakup. It was really heavy and hard. And I remember feeling like I was grieving someone who had passed away. And I felt like that was kind of silly and stupid. But then I realized, like, whether it's a breakup, whether it's grief, whether it's whatever, like, loss is loss. And we all experience loss, like, universally the same way. Like, the circumstances might be entirely different, but we all grieve. We all feel that pain. It's the same pain. Different intensity, certainly, all this stuff. But this is, like, in that one moment, I remember being like, oh, I'm not alone with this pain. I might be alone right now physically, but like there are other people in this world right now who are feeling exactly how I'm feeling. And that was such a powerful moment for me. And I feel like music had done that for me up until then. And then that became like now emotions, feelings, experiences. That's such a big part of the therapy that I do try to do, is really helping people recognize that, just because you've created a silo around you thinking that you're the only one who's experienced that feeling, it's actually a feeling other people would recognize too. You're not alone.
It's so, thank you for sharing that. There's so many things there. I want to start off by saying I have a Peanuts book. I think it's Linus on the front of it. And it says something about the power of a sad song. And it's the whole Peanuts gang. And it just talks about little one lines, little Snoopy, little Charlie Brown, but it talks about sometimes we want to avoid that. We don't want to watch because we don't want to feel. How many times have we heard people say, I don't want to watch a sad movie.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel such. Music sometimes, whether it's radio or wherever, it can come out of nowhere and catch us off guard.
Yeah.
Which is a gift if we're willing to see it. You've almost given me an idea for a whole other podcast. But talking about the vibrational side, the polyvagal work, when you're humming, singing, and you're also being creative at the same time, you're hitting a lot of the tools for anxiety. You're hitting a lot of things to calm the central nervous, right? Kicking onto your parasympathetic. Because, as I stopped the lessons I was doing, because a lot of trauma in my jaw, she said, but continue to sing, but sing funny, sing ridiculous, try and sing Adele, sing things that are way out of your depth, but laugh at yourself. Like you have to enjoy to get to a place. And I will go back. I still sing at home quite a bit. The dogs are.
I do like a lot of voice work at home. I say voice work as if I'm like a professional. It's just for me and my children and my husband. But that's been such a cool way to use that, because it's the same mechanism.
Yes.
So creating different characters, and it's just being playful and being silly and finding ways to use your own body, your own sounds, vibrations to create joy.
Yes. I like that.
Which is just fun.
Shout out to Pixar and Disney if you're looking for a voice.
I'm amazing.
Right.
I'm just going to say. I do a really good, mean Cockney accent, like that old timey British street urchin. Bring me in,
there you go. Right? It's the ability to dive in between, right? Think of Robin Williams going between voices. So one more, this is the last question I have for you. It's, what does True Colors mean to you?
Well, I think Cyndi Lauper aside, because she's really iconic.
I think she is the one who sang that, right? Okay. Did I make that up?
Yeah.
I think, when I started in crisis work, I never really understood what I was doing. I just kind of was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered very quickly I'm very good at it. And I build relationships with people pretty quickly. People who don't trust a lot of people, who don't want to talk to a lot of people, talk to me and trust me. And I think it's because I am very much what you see is what you get. And when you can show up authentically without judgment with people and they can feel that they're not being judged for how they're showing up,
you connect on a very raw level. And at the end of the day, all that anybody wants is to be able to connect with other people. We are social creatures. As a species, our survival depended on community. Losing your community meant you would likely die before we lived in villages and houses. And we have that. That is such an inherent, that is encoded in our DNA. But we put on so many layers of falsehoods and protective barriers that kind of create distance between us and the world. And now we see it, social media, AI, all of these edits that people do and photos and videos where you don't really see the real human anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think of True Colors, I'm thinking of all of that stripped down and being able to show up imperfect, raw, real, and present. And so I think in this context, I love this idea, you had talked about it, the people that had helped you coming and kind of talking a little bit about their story, because it also kind of like we all have a story. You will not find a person in this planet who does not have a story.
Yes.
Everyone has experienced something. And yes, that's different. It doesn't matter because it's all situational and contextual to whatever they're going through.
But how boring would it be if we were all the same?
You know? And so True Colors is being able to just like sit in that, I think, and not, you don't have to tell everybody, but you have to, you can be, you don't have to ignore it. You don't have to pretend it's not there. And people will connect to it whether they know what it is or not.
It's so good.
Thank you.
Thank you for today. It felt as usual, except for I'm usually in a comfier chair.
You're leaned back,
Right?
in vibe mode.
In the therapy mode. But thank you so much. I am, as many will be, and I know many are, inspired by your abilities and your willingness again to share your story. It's what makes you next level at what you do. And
Thank you.
I thank you for what you've done for me personally. And I know there's friends and maybe people on the airwaves that have been benefactors of some of the stuff that you've taught me. And I hope and pray that everything for you goes exactly how you planned with Boyd and so on. All
World domination. That's the plan.
Right?
So.
I was hoping for Ontario healthcare, but
Going big. Going big.
Right,
No.
Okay. But thank you. And,
Thank you.
So this is Mark Russellelli saying thank you for tuning in. If you're struggling, if you're going through challenges, you're not alone. Reach out. Take one brave step. It doesn't have to look. The phone doesn't have to be 1,000 pounds. And I also, it's on my heart to share that sometimes one of the most important things we can do is be a bridge. So if there's something you've heard today that you know someone may need in your life, the greatest gift is not to worry about how it may reflect on you or the feelings you may hurt, but you may actually help save a life just by sharing something. So thank you for turning in, and God bless.
You've been listening to True Colors with Mark Russellelli. Executive production by Mr. Norm Media Productions.